Hello, y'all. My name is Bill, and welcome to the Awakening and Conscious Living podcast. And my partner in conscious growth is Louisa. Louisa, introduce yourself, please.
Hey y'all, I'm Louisa. Thank you for being here with us today.
And I'm actually going to turn this over to Louisa, but we've been working through patterns that keep us from growing consciously, right?
Yeah, we started this beautiful series about the invisible patterns controlling your life. Each week, we've been talking about a pattern that is somewhere in your life that may be controlling aspects of how you move through everyday life, that we may be unaware of because it's really easy to, as we navigate life, really lose sight of the things that we're doing, the why behind we're doing them. So today we're going to be focusing on people pleasing, the pattern of people pleasing and when you control their emotions and lose yours. So, we're going to be talking about that. The first thing that I think about when I think about people pleasing, besides me mastering people pleasing for a big part of my life, I think about those moments when I want to say yes, when I want to say no, but end up saying yes. And the first thing that comes to mind as I was putting our notes together for this is that normally what I fail to do in most of those situations is create space enough for me to muster up the confidence or the comfort or the ability or just reframe the situation so that I can come back and say no, if that's what I want to say. So there seems to be in this pattern, the way that I've experienced it is the need to create space from the situation in order to be true to myself and not respond from the immediate, need, desire, and conditioning to say yes to make sure that somebody else's feelings and emotions aren't hurt without taking into consideration my own in that moment.
And I think that's beautiful. In my book that will be published soon, I talked about pattern interrupts. And so anytime that you can interrupt your pattern or somebody else's pattern, I learned it in sales actually, uh, to interrupt somebody's pattern so you can introduce a new idea. But anytime some people wear a rubber band around their wrist and they'll pop themselves or something, right? That's a pattern interrupt. So anytime that we can become aware of our patterns and do a quick pattern interrupt and a pause or a space, like you're talking about, once it becomes conscious, putting that pause in there is a pattern interrupt to give you time to think, or me time to think, and to put somebody else in a pattern interrupt also. Um, so that's a general comment. The other thing I'm going to go back to is at the very beginning, you talked about unconscious patterns and recognizing our patterns. And I was thinking about, I have a terrible people pleasing pattern, and I didn't realize it till I was 65 years into my life.
Really?
Now that's a long
Yeah.
time to carry a pattern. And so these patterns are so deep, you don't even understand. I mean, I believe in my mind that I'm a nice guy and I really love people, but I didn't understand that I was people pleasing. And then I had to go all the way back to my childhood to see where that trauma was and didn't even realize it. And then played it back over all those years. And that's when it began to start to dissolve. And it's taken me the better part of a year or so to uh, really get a handle on that one, which is crazy.
Yeah.
I've been operating unconsciously for almost my whole life.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of awareness, right? And why part of why we do this is it's like everything you don't know what you don't know. And if you don't know that you're just on autopilot pleasing others, then you don't even know where to start to look, to understand, to then change, to then create that pattern interruption. And one of the things that I realized when I did what you did, which was go back and figure out where this pattern began to sort of just mirror what you said. For me, it was childhood when I went back and realized, where did this all start? The abandonment of my mother really created a space where I just needed someone to love and accept me. And it was just anyone at that point. I have pictures of myself at 6 years old, and I'm sitting on my uncle's lap, like eating a mango or something. And I remember I can actually brought myself back to that moment, and it was just there was a group of adults, and I was just standing in the middle, just waiting for somebody to choose me to sit me on their lap and just be with me. And I think from the abandonment to all of the other negative life experiences that I had as a child, what started to happen is I started to feel this false sense of safety by pleasing others. It made me feel like not only could I know what to expect, but I could also get whatever protection, and I say that in quotation marks, they could offer me or they were offering me because that abandonment wound created that need to feel protected. So that's something that I know happens to a lot of people pleasers is that we are yearning for safety. We are yearning to really feel like we belong sometimes. And a lot of times it has to do with protecting the other person's emotions, not hurting their emotions. But what you're creating in the process is self betrayal. You are betraying yourself every single time that you make a decision or do say a yes when you want to say no to someone so that you don't hurt them. But then what ends up happening is that you're betraying yourself, creating a new pattern of people pleasing and self betrayal right there concurrently.
That's exactly right. And, I think that it's interesting that we're trying to control situations, right? And we're controlling out of, all type of desires, desires to be loved, desires to be heard, um, desires not to be heard,
Yeah.
just general fear. But every time we people please, we betray ourselves, which diminishes the authentic self, right?
Yeah. And I beg this for anyone watching and listening is you have to ask yourself, right? There's this clip, and I think I mentioned it to you before. I still don't even know who said it, but it's about the difference between being kind and being nice. Actually, I think it's Trevor Noah. He yes, I love him.
I don't know.
My God, you have to look him up. He's like his soul just radiates light from like wherever he's at. But he said, he mentioned this, and I'm not gonna get the context 100% correct here, but he explained the difference between kind and nice. And he says, "You have something on your face, right? You're in a room of people, you have something on your face. A kind person will tell you, 'Hey, you have a booger sticking out.' A nice person won't say that to you."
Right, exactly.
And so I implore the viewer, the listener to question when you're saying yes to something you don't want to say yes to, what place is that coming from? Because it's not actually kindness. That's not kindness.
Exactly. And I would also say that people pleasing is definitely a learned survival skill, but I think it comes more naturally to some groups of people. Like, in general, I'm easygoing, I'm very loving, I want the best for everybody. And so it's easier for somebody like me to people please and not even recognize it because I really honestly want to love people and bring out the best in them and all those type of things. But what I was always missing was that I was either giving too much, okay, or I was being too quiet, and that was betraying myself.
Yeah.
So,
That has become important. And I feel like I'm just at the surface of that. But ask yourself, is there an even energetic exchange? Because there are situations in which it's not just about, oh, I don't want to do that. For example, like if you're a parent or, a family member, or even, for example, like if you have older parents, sometimes it's not, do I want to go, So there are situations in which it's not just about whether you want to or not, but is there an even energetic exchange? Am I helping this person and they're helping themselves? Or am I helping this person and I'm doing everything for this person and they're not even trying to help themselves?
Exactly right. And what happens over time, especially if you're in some type of close relationship, whether it's a friendship or a marriage or whatever, um, and if you're a people pleaser, you give and give and give and give. And when that's not reciprocated over time, then the giver at some point in time, the tanks,
Yeah.
right? Your tank empties.
Yeah.
And then you're either that relationship has got to readjust
Yeah.
or it comes apart. So, and yeah,
Something
so,
I've
and
been Oh, go ahead.
that's the hard part about being a people pleaser is stopping the over giving when you got into a relationship where you were over giving to begin with. And then that tension starts with the other person. And then if they can't come around, then the imbalance stays too great and it falls apart.
Myself here, but I want to say this more generally. When you have been in a relationship where you are an overgiver and you are a people pleaser, and that has been a big part of what has led it to fall apart, it can be scary to think that you're going to enter another relationship, even after you've healed that wound, because you don't actually know how well you've healed that wound until you're in the situation again. So that's just something to take into consideration because until this very moment, I didn't even recognize that. Um, that can be something that's scary in the future. So, in terms of people pleasing and recognizing the pattern, make sure that you're aware of that pattern so you can overcome it, but also that you're not putting yourself in a space where you're now fearing entering new relationships and moving on with different aspects of your life because of that pattern. You're not going to fully um, unfold and really understand and heal all aspects of it until you do allow yourself to put yourself in situations where that people pleasing may want to come up. You're not going to know if you've changed the pattern until it comes up and you make a different decision. So you have to be in the place where it comes up.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
The other thing that popped into my head when we were kind of going back to the kind, nice thing, whether flick the booger off the person's nose for them or let them know that it's there. That was your example. Uh, uh, now, what was I going to say? I forgot. Oh, when you are constantly pleasing people or a person or whatever, it doesn't matter. Um, then you're not allowing them to heal themselves,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And so that's unhealthy also.
Yeah.
And not that, we don't, everything's in proportion, everything's in balance. So sometimes you give, but you can't give all the time. And if the person is not healing themselves, and you don't even have to point it out, but they'll either have to go somewhere else to get the energy that they need to continue their bad patterns, or they will become aware of their bad patterns and heal themselves. But as people pleasers, we tend to prop up the whole world,
Yeah. Yeah. We think we
right?
can. We want to. We try.
Yeah. I mean, why not? I mean, you want to love everybody. You want everybody to be happy. We want the best for every soul in the world, right? But the best for every soul in the world takes the yin and the yang. It takes the darkness and the light, right?
Yeah.
It takes the easy part and the part that grinds against us, which is why we're here in this world, is to grind against things so we can perfect our love, our whatever it is that you want to perfect, but definitely perfect our consciousness.
Yeah. And, talking about that, I feel like the awareness, in people pleasing, you have to realize where these patterns come from. So, for example, when we're trying to prop the whole world up and you are not allowing that other person to sort of heal their own patterns, where's that coming from? Is that coming from fear? From your fear? Is that coming from obligation? Why do you feel obligated to heal that person, to help them, fix themselves or whatever it is that you feel? Where's that coming from? Because where that's coming from is going to show you your own shadows too. Um, and that's the name of the game.
That is the name of the game.
when you're a people pleaser, there's a need to remember that you're not responsible to carry the weight of others in any aspect of your life. You're not responsible for their weight. You're not responsible for their emotions. You're not responsible for how they react. You're not responsible as to whether you cause them to feel disappointment, as to whether whatever it is, you're not responsible for their response, for their emotions, for their feelings. You're not responsible for their journey. And the truth is that if you are in any type of relationship and there isn't discomfort, you really should second guess that relationship. There has to be some sort of discomfort.
If there's no discomfort,
You have to
you should
second
second guess the relationship?
yes.
Wow, that's a I've never thought of it that way, but that is a super easy indicator, isn't it?
It is because there's no growth. So what are you doing with each other? Are you just accepting each other without, pushing each other to grow in any way? Are you and it's not that you need to challenge to a duel, but hey, challenge that thought process. Like, for example, there have been conversations that I've had with you that they're simple conversations and you share a thought, an idea, um, that I've been thinking about for like 3 days, for like 5 days. It's pushed me to grow, and it has felt uncomfortable. It's like, oh, I didn't wanna realize that about myself. I didn't so if there isn't some of that, like you have to really question. So, like, I just wanna be clear, I'm not saying, like, go fight with your partner, don't go create shit just to create shit, but you have to question if what they're saying, if, the ideas that they have, if the conversations you're having, if the situations that you're putting yourself in, with that other person are not causing you to feel some sort of discomfort, which therefore, creates growth, then you really have to question that. You're not responsible for that. But if you don't see that within yourself at the very least, you need to question whether you are just pleasing the other person constantly so that you are preventing some sort of emotion or feeling or, anger or whatever it is to come up. Because then there are deeper questions that you need to start asking.
Oh, golly. All these people-pleasing patterns and all the relationships that I've had in my life, they're all kinda coming up, and I could tell you lots of stories. And some of it felt really beautiful too. I mean, if you're building a family and you're giving and giving and giving to everybody, and you see those people growing, especially children. I mean, it's really beautiful. Um,
Mm.
but, then sometimes you've got to say something because everybody needs guidance, right?
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned children because I think the people pleasing thing with children, I think it can feel iffy. I focused on motherhood and that was my excuse for like hiding. I mean, a lot of excuses, but that was like the main thing. That was like the main thing for me was like, I was always a mother. It can look like, oh, I'm going to do everything that my kid needs. I'm going to jump hoops so my daughter can take $720 worth of ballet lessons every month. I'm going to get a second job to do that because that's what she said she wants to do. I'm going to buy my son a $50,000 car because that's the car he said he wants. And the truth is with parenting is that, again, I just feel really strongly that if there isn't discomfort, is there growth? I carry that into my parenting as well. Because also, I think if I am not the first person to say no to my kids, how are they going to act? How are they going to react when somebody outside of their home is the first one to say no when all of those emotions come up and they're so angry and they don't like it and la la la? So I kind of take it as a responsibility to be the first one to say no. They need to understand that no is a complete and full sentence. Just like I want them to understand that for themselves as to what they accept, I want them to understand that other people have the right to also just be like, no, I'm not doing that for you. No, I don't want that with you. Like, no, or whatever it is. So it's a two-way street. People pleasing in parenting also has no place. There are fine lines, and you're gonna have to question that and make those decisions for yourself but, people pleasing and parenting, it doesn't mean that one just goes with the other.
I think I said this in our last podcast, but I think this is still a very powerful statement, and I'll just let y'all ruminate on a little bit. But Jesus said, "Let your yes be yes, and your no be no, and everything else comes from the devil." And there's a lot of beauty in that, and being able to say yes politely and say no politely also, right?
Yeah. And I think you learn
But
that with practice, right? Like you have to practice.
you definitely have to practice. Because when people call you up, like when I was changing my people pleasing ways, and probably before I started changing them, I would say no, but then I would want to give people reasons,
Yeah.
or I'd want to go, well, can you do this for me on Thursday afternoon? Well, I've got this and this and this. And then I'd give in, right? Because they wouldn't give in. And so, those are the reasons. That's beyond the yes and the no. We, to stay authentic to ourselves in a kind way, we need to be able to say no and say yes, right? Because when we're not whole, we're not helping the wholeness for anybody else either.
Yeah. That's beautiful because, the last thing that I'll say about that is authenticity. If where's it coming from? Kind of like I mentioned about kindness is along those lines is where's your yes coming from? Do you genuinely wanna do that for that person? Like, what kind of relationship are you then creating outside of the people pleasing and outside of whether or not it's kind, but what kind of relationship? What are you establishing in that relationship with that kid or, with your child or with that friend or, with that employer when you just say yes to say yes?
What is the relationship you're creating with yourself, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's interesting. I haven't thought about it that way. But when you were talking about the relationship I'm creating with the person outside of me, that's a mirror of the relationship I'm creating with myself.
Yeah. Yeah, and it makes you question, like, when you're seeing that reflection, is that how you wanna navigate life?
Just a couple little things here. I can disappoint people and still be safe. I can misunderstand or can be misunderstood and still remain whole. And love, true love doesn't require self abandonment.
Oof.
Mic drop.
Mic drop. That yes. Yeah, that is so true and right, and if we can operate from that place, I think the world will be a much better place. Recognize that self-love true love does not require self-abandonment. The last thing that I'll say is a little bit of a somatic practice to help break the cycle. We started sort of the episode talking about this, talking about, you know, that um, one of the things that I found is that this immediate need to one, get rid of any discomfort that may come up in the situation, and two, keep from, making the other person feel any emotion, sort of trying to control the situation so that emotions don't get out of hand. The space that I found is um is creating exactly that. Is creating time and space. And a lot of us, if you're already a people pleaser, that can feel hard and it can feel unnatural, especially in the first few times. But for example, for me, a lot of my people pleasing tendencies what I started to do was not responding to text messages immediately, which gave me time to process what and understand it in my body, feel it out. Do I actually want to do this? Do I not want to do this? But it also gave me time to formulate a response in a way that was kind, like you mentioned. So creating space. If it's a text message, you don't need to respond immediately. If it was an emergency, they'd call 911. Okay. So um, don't, create space that way by taking time, and don't let the text sit there for a year. That's not what I'm saying, or for 2 days, but, take the 30 minutes, take the 45 minutes so that you can give yourself time to feel what a true answer is going to be for you. And if you're in person, this can be the hardest. And at least in my experience, it was the most difficult to say no to someone in person because I mastered the texting no first and then in person maybe when the conversation comes up, you suddenly need to go get a cup of water. You need to get a drink. You need to do whatever it takes to create time and space. And that is going to feel extremely uncomfortable. And it may take 5 or 10 or 15 times of creating space, going to, breaking up that conversation to get a glass of water, breaking up the conversation. Oh, I need to respond to this call real quick. Or, I need to go to the next room or whatever it is. Um, to be able to create that space so you can feel in your body and process how you want to respond to that and sort of breathe in to be able to manage the rest of the discomfort that is going to happen when you come back to that conversation and say no.
One thing I have to say, I got focused on this a second ago is, why do you have to give an excuse? Well, I got to take a phone call, or I got to do this. Why can't we just say, well, if we're in person, let me think about that for a little bit,
I like that. I love
as
that.
opposed to making an excuse, which can be a lie, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it can be, and it'll feel like it. Every time in the beginning, it'll always feel like a lie because when you haven't created the habit of creating and taking space, like now it's a habit. But that is a good one, and I think that is the best approach, is to just say, "Let me think about it," because that's exactly what you're gonna go do by creating time and space, is think about it, feel it out.
And I think you all know when we lie, and we all lie. Okay. So if you find yourself lying, that is also a good pattern interrupt to go, I'm telling a lie here. Why am I telling a lie? What's driving this? You know, why don't I just create some space and think about this for a minute?
Yeah. Yeah, and so what you're saying in that moment, matters. So if you're saying, "I need a drink of water," or "I'm gonna go get a drink of water," those are 2 different. One, you're lying, and the other one, you just decided that you were gonna go get water in that moment. You know what I mean? So then that's the power of words that we always talk about.
Exactly. Or we could just not have to making a decision on that right now. And I'll get back to you on that. And when are you going to get back to me? I don't know. When I decide.
Yeah. And that's beautiful. I feel like now, being at
Is that
this place,
beautiful?
it's beautiful. Being at this place now, just kind of because of the trajectory that it got to get to this place where I can just do that. Um, it's beautiful to know that I have the inner power to do that, to just deal with the discomfort that they're not going to like, that I'm going to make a decision when I make a decision. That's when I'm going to make a decision is when I make it. And I'll let you know when that happens.
And you know what? And when we become honest and we're not wearing masks and we're just upfront with people, I have a lot of people in my life that they're like, oh, no, I'm not going to do that. Uh, and that's fine. And I appreciate that. You know, appreciate honesty, appreciate being forthright. I get that every request I'm going to ask of people is not going to be fulfilled. I might have to ask a number of different people. Doesn't matter,
Yeah.
right? But there's a respect for that level of honesty and forthrightness, especially if it can be delivered with trueness and not gruffly, right?
All that to say, thank you for being with us today. I hope that your people pleasing tendencies start to fall away. And I hope that what we shared is helpful in the journey of not just recognizing your people pleasing tendencies, but also in the journey of unbecoming a people pleaser.
So you can become yourself.
Yes. Thank you. And until next time.
Thank you all.
If you're waking up, questioning everything, and trying to reconnect with who you truly are, I wrote this book for you. It's a guide to remembering your divine nature, healing old conditioning, and stepping into inner sovereignty. If that resonates, check out the link below, www.atobook.com.